Hello.
So welcome back to the Climate and Environment Subcommittee meeting of the 20th of August. We're now going to move on to item 8.3, which is our Sustainable September update. And welcome to Nick.
Kia ora, morena koutou. We're delighted to bring to you today the draft program for Sustainable September, a month of planned events which the Climate Action and Connected Communities team are leading. Under the Climate Emergency Action Framework, one of the principles is to look for and take opportunities to lead, facilitate, empower community projects and initiatives that will build sustainability, resilience and green innovation. So Rob's going to run through the lineup in more detail, but the purpose today is to bring the program to you, to invite you to any of the events listed, and especially we'd like to welcome you to the opening event on the 2nd of September with our Climate Action Grant recipients, both the first year and the second. A coordination of sustainable community events and workshops has been run under different names prior, the latest being the number 8 Wire, and delivered previously through the Connected Communities team. With the joining of the Climate Action and the Connected Communities kaupapa through the organisational review, we've had the opportunity to deliver this event as one team. I must particularly make a shout out to our comms colleagues Rebecca Rolls and Rain Fraser and the comms and engagement team and the wider communications teams as events have been scheduled. You'll see there's quite a lot there. I'll take the report as read and hand over to Rob to brief you on his project, and he's been working really hard on it, which is Sustainable September. So kia ora.
Thank you, Rob. Welcome.
Thanks very much, and ata maria. So Sustainable September, as we say, join us to celebrate sustainability, climate action and community connection with free and affordable workshops and activities across Kapiti. So what this looks like, it's a bit of a mix. The program's a mix of events, some led by council, some led by our community partners. We've got over 30 workshops and events lined up, and we've stood this all up at reasonably short notice, so really great response from our community partners, and it ties in really well with a number of initiatives that are already happening from council and across our communities. Running a few internal events as well. What you're seeing here, what's coming up on the slide shows some of these details are still being finalised. So if you've got feedback about design and details of wording and stuff, this is already out of date. Just when I was pulling this together last night, and it's been tweaked already this morning. But it's already, I think we've got the first advertising out in the UK newsletter that's just gone out this morning. So look, a bit of an overview of the calendar. The colour scheme's changed on the calendar, but that gives you an overview of what the events calendar is going to look like. Appreciate that's pretty hard to read, so if I just pull out some of the details there. So various waste reduction workshops. We've got a sustainable art expo happening at the library. Cycle training, e-bike have a go day with pedal ready. And we've got repair cafes, clothing repair workshops. We've got gardening, composting, biochar workshops. Cooking workshops run by both Remo and Kaibosh. Ngā Manu hosting various workshops and events. We're working with Sustainable Business Network to host Acting on Climate Within Your Business workshop here towards the end of the month. We're linking to other national and international events, Conservation Week, World Car Free Day, and so on. So there's a lot happening next month. And really for you, it's a bit of an update, letting you know this is coming, opportunity to get involved, and really, if you're interested, it would be great to get you to help to champion this event. If you're taking any photos or putting anything on social media posts, our comms team advise if you use that hashtag, Sustainable Kapiti, that will link to this program, and that's a nice way to raise the profile of it.
Sorry, just one real quick thing on that. Under the 26th of September, you got the Pakakurihi Orchards and Gardens Biochar Workshop. It says Otaki next to that.
Yes.
I'm presuming it should say Pakakurihi.
No, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hanford. That is an event being hosted by Pakakurihi Orchard and Gardens in association with Kokoriki Earth and Toru Education. The venue is actually an orchard in Otaki Gorge.
Ah, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, but Paikakuriki Orchard and Gardens are the key driver behind the event, and that's through the biochar project that the Climate Action Grant funding has enabled over this year and last year as well. Uh,
Where this is on, we don't have this, do we? Do we have this?
Not yet. Maybe we can just let Rob finish the presentation and then we can ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yeah, look, this is hot off the press, so I appreciate you might not have all this in the report in front of you. Just a sneak preview, this is sort of what it will look like on our website. So if we're advertising it, if people then follow the link to go to our website, if they want to sign up to for workshops and learn more, it'll look something like this on our website. And finally, one detail that isn't actually on the calendar because it's a private event, but to celebrate our Climate Action Grant recipients from last year and this year, we're hosting an evening here on Monday, the 2nd of September, 4:30 to 6 p.m. This is envisaged as just a chance to acknowledge and celebrate all the hard work that our community partners are doing, chance to connect with people, learn about their projects. Light refreshments are available. So I understand that invite has now gone out to everyone. Apologies, I actually thought we'd got that out a little bit earlier, but I think that invite's now with everyone, and there'll be a subsequent invite to come that would just capture details of how many people are attending and dietary preferences and all that kind of thing. So more details to come. So that's and there will be another couple of events like that aren't listed on the website because they're private events, such as the Kapiti Environmental Youth Summit, which is on the next day. So there's various other events happening during September that aren't actually on the website, but connect really well with the overall theme. So that's a quick overview, and welcome any questions or comments.
Councillor Coe.
Oh, looks fabulous. I don't know if do you remember we used to have sustainability shows over at school? I think it was in Jenny Rowan's time, which were always well attended, but I think that the cost got a bit prohibitive. I think that's why they didn't continue them. So I think this sort of more widespread approach is probably a better way to go. Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there any opportunity to, for sponsorship, to encourage sponsors to help contribute to the costs of running some of the events?
Through you, Madam Chair. Look, I think that's a great question. We've stood all this up at reasonably short notice this year, but I think just from the response we've had from our community partners, I think there's a lot of interest, and I think we could really grow this in the future towards a bigger event and really involve our local business community more and scope for sponsorship. Absolutely.
Yeah, companies like Composting New Zealand or, I don't know, whatever, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but, those sort of, big companies I would have thought would be all over this kind of thing as an opportunity to, showcase what they're doing as well. Yeah. Or our local businesses, people in this sustainable business network and what have you. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. Mr. Black.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, excellent. Thanks, Rob. Monique, that's awesome. My question is around advertising. Is there collateral there that we can actually put in the billboards outside the library for our community board? And, do we have collateral for our local Facebook feeds, and also are we putting it in our local papers?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thanks for the question. We'll be going out through all the usual channels. So that'll be local papers, social media. So it's just gone out in everything Kapiti. We'll have posters up at libraries and pools. We've stopped short just within our budget. So we're not getting billboards out, and we're not advertising on the radio, but all other channels we'll be utilising.
Great. Would you be able to make those graphics available to us so we can send them through our local Facebook networks too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, that would be great to have your help promote.
Yeah, thank you. Nice.
So thank you to Rob and Monique and the team for putting this together. I think it's an absolutely fantastic initiative, and given that you've got 30 activities in the whole of September, so that's an average of one a day, and I know that most of them at the weekend. So that's a major amount of work that's gone into this. I actually see that they're already on the KCDC website, which is great. So people, when they go there, they can see it. I'm just wondering though, whether there would be any benefit in having a map showing where in the district they are, so that people could look at what's going on in their local community.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's a great suggestion. I can talk to our comms team about that, about how we might make a link there.
Yeah, maybe a number and then a number on a map, or I'm not sure how you do it, but yes, yeah. Okay, so so thank you very much, and I encourage everyone to be involved as you can to get the word out there and to champion this, because it's it's amazing that when you look on the website there, how to become a pest detective, clothing repair shop, clean and simple toiletries and cleanser workshop. So it's very, very diverse. So it's amazing that I suppose the ideas that you've come up with and the fact that you've actually found people who've got the skills and the ability to run these. So thank you very much, and I wish you all the best, and I'm looking forward to it myself. So thank you.
Yeah, we can, as Councillor Back requested, we can send you images like this that you can promote through your usual channels. Yeah.
Yeah, I think all elected members would be good. Yeah.
I think we'll attach these as slides. That's what I understood from Democracy. We can attach these ones as slides, but as we've got finalised ones, absolutely we'll share, because yeah, we really welcome champions. That's our role, is to embed and to really, we can't do it all. So yeah, really hoping to lean on some support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and all the best, and look forward again. So
Thank you.
Oh yes, so there is a recommendation that the Climate and Environment Subcommittee receive this update. Can I have a mover for that, please? Mr. Black, Sophie. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Passed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to our one and only report for this meeting, which is 9.1. It's an update on the Climate Change and Resilience Community Think Tank. So I'm not sure if Chris is going to come and speak to that.
Kia ora. I just really wanted to provide a bit of an opening to this item. I would like to, highlight, it is around 12 months ago, we determined that we would stand up a climate change and resilience think tank, which we have done. And the purpose of bringing that think tank together was initially limited to 12 months because we wanted them to work with us on developing our strategy, which we have been doing. We've had a lot of feedback from our climate change and resilience think tank, which has informed the work to date. However, we've had a few changes which you will be familiar with, one being Takutai Kapiti, and the landing of that, and agreement that we've received the report, but we'll be coming back to talk about what we do with those recommendations. And on the back of that, some of the advice that we've received from our climate change and resilience think tank to date has been, we really need to include some actions around adaptation, which ideally we'd be considering what has come out of Takutai Kapiti and what does that mean for our strategy. The reason I'm raising this is because effectively we're at a space with our climate change strategy where we've received a lot of feedback. We've landed our direction of travel, which we've actually shared with you. But our work in that space for now has come to what I'm going to say a pause or a bit of an end given that 12-month period. So we've been talking with the Climate Change and Resilience think tank about what are the next steps for that group, and really thinking about how they might be starting to shift into a more action-oriented, community-focused group who might cover the focus areas that we've already talked about and identified in our climate change strategy, current version being the direction of travel. So really today, what we're coming back to you with is a bit of a report back, just to effectively clarify the points I've made, that we believe we're at a moment of I'm going to call it a pivot. We're pivoting into our next phase. So on the back of that, what I want to say is we had more than 50 people apply to be part of the Climate Change and Resilience think tank. And I'm going to say to you, I feel like we got the best of the best. We've had a really enthusiastic bunch of people coming together with fresh ideas and thinking who've been very valuable to our process to date. There's more to be done, and that's why we're coming to you today to say we would like to shift into phase 2. And I think importantly, we and our recommendations are wanting to acknowledge and thank the existing climate change and resilience think tank members for what they've already, or the value they've provided to us today, to get your endorsement effectively to shift into phase 2. And as part of phase 2, I just want to note that we are in conversation with that existing climate change and resilience think tank group to see how we take that next step. We believe that part of that next step does include appointing an interim chair of some kind. We're not asking you to do that today, but we're wanting your support for those next steps so that effectively we can stand up what will become an independent advisory forum that will report back to this group. And I'll frame it this way. Just as with the Social Sustainability Committee, we have the Kapiti Health Advisory Group. This committee would have something that was appropriate for a climate and resilience, and the paper does say (and environment) advisory group. So that's the kaupapa of the paper on the table today. We will take it as read and look for any questions. Back to you, Jocelyn.
So thank you to Chris and Gina and the team who have supported the work of this think tank. I also would like to acknowledge and thank the members of our community who put their hands up and have been part of that, and also to our elected members who are part of that think tank as well, Simon, Christian and Sophie. So I will now move on to questions. Councillor Coe.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah, look, I just wondered how have things gone from the point of view of the people who are members of that group, particularly the community members, and are they wanting to continue on? Have they suggested any ways in which it can be improved, or do we need to start from square one and recruit people all over again, or what's the current state of their thinking?
I might have a crack at that, and then, given there's a couple of people around the table who've been party to these conversations, they can add in. So I think I would probably say two things. I think a think tank started off with a real, I'm going to say, energy and momentum is the word I think I want to use. And we're really in the middle of strategy and giving feedback. I think across the group, it's really clear that there's a variety of interests. So some people are interested in more action, some people are interested in more strategic stuff, some are both. But the mix has been really good, and I think they've had really good conversation. They've talked I think, about wanting the chance to, I guess, work together and get to know each other and to form into some spaces together. And they haven't quite got there. I think with more time and I think the right settings, that's definitely doable. And I think there is a lot of interest in that. I think to get to the next phase, though, we're proposing to support that independence. It requires, and I think that was agreed even this week from some of the members of that think tank, that somebody needs to, in a more governance and administrative kind of zone, take that lead. So we're trying to step into that independent space from council, and a lot of our discussion's been around how we do that. So first phase and the input we've had around strategy has been amazing. And some of that has been around mana whenua engagement. It's been a bit limited, but the reason I raised Takutai Kapiti is that our mana whenua partners have been right in the middle of that, and that at some point we need to work through how that comes back in and can be utilised. So we've had some really good cultural values assessments and work done that I think from a climate change perspective is just so valuable, not just for Takutai Kapiti but more broadly. So we need to work through that. And I guess because we've had that, I will say pause, and we've been pivoting into, so what would our next steps look like? I think that's where we've come to the agreement, is the word I'll use, that we need to do it slightly differently. So it's not the people we have, we have to start again, absolutely not. I think there's a huge amount of expertise, enthusiasm, and a lot that those people can bring to our next phase. It'll just be getting somebody who can help with that governance and administration side and that kind of chair role to organise and get things going. We're missing that at the moment, so we're just stepping into, so what would that look like?
Yeah, it's the same problem every community group has. Who's going to do the admin and chair the meetings and arrange everything? So if they're moving to be more independent, does that imply they'll have their own voice? So they may, in some respects, hold council to account, or say things publicly that may agree or disagree with the way council is, or council policy on certain matters? I think
I'm going to frame it this way. Currently, the advisory groups that we have a terms of reference that is agreed with council, and what the advisory scope is. However, they all operate slightly differently. I think the Kapiti Health Advisory Group definitely looks at things to hold council to account. Might not look that way, but they do. And so they've actually got quite a high interest in things like water quality and some other things like that. So the reason I'm going to say it that way is I think there should be a broad span of things that we'd expect them to be interested in. I'd say ideally aligned to the things of focus in the climate strategy, and that's quite wide. But that would be to come back to this table to be agreed. So I think you've seen, and I'm using the Kapiti Health Advisory Group because they are topic-based, you have seen them bring advice to the table, advocacy to the table, and they're continuing to start to push that in a range of areas. And this climate change and resilience group will obviously have a different topic that they're focused on. But yeah, I think we should expect them to come back with unbiased and independent advice.
I think that would be good. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing they have their own voice. And in fact, I think, the Kapiti Health Advisory Group needs a stronger independent voice and more advocacy. So I think it would be great to have a group in the climate environment space that acts the same way. That says things that council can't say, that we might want to say but we can't, to have that independence and that strong advocacy voice on behalf of the community. I think would be a positive move.
Yeah, I think, and they'd be very keen to do that, I think, from conversation.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. So now I'm going to go to Mayor Janet, as she's had her hand up for quite a while. Thank you, Janet.
Yes. Thanks for this. It's great to have an update and to be looking forward to a second phase of this work and to inject some fresh energy into this group. I'm a little bit concerned, this may be a little bit more of a comment, but I'm a little bit concerned about bringing the work of the Takutai Kapiti group into this as well. I think I would kind of prefer to see this group branching out into a broader environmental space rather than a broader climate change space. And as we've seen today, there's quite a lot going on already in council in terms of resilience and mitigation. So I would prefer to see an oversight of that side of things. And I guess to bring it into a question, you kind of mentioned, Chris, the Takutai Kapiti work, but I'm not quite clear what the thinking is in terms of bringing that adaptation work into this group. It starts to be quite broad if you do that as well, and also confused with district planning and implementation of that work, which is a conversation we haven't yet had. So just wanting a little bit more clarity around that, I guess.
Sure. My reference was mainly in terms of adaptation itself, which covers effectively a wide span of things. I think at the time when we pushed out with our direction of travel and strategy, we had said we weren't focusing on adaptation because we were progressing Takutai Kapiti and we were going to wait till that had finished. The feedback that we had from the Climate Change and Resilience think tank is that a climate change and resilience strategy must have adaptation in it. And so we were really looking to I guess, come back round once it had ended. There is more work to be done with Takutai Kapiti and next steps and how those things may or may not connect. And so our proposition was to pause just while we unpack that a bit further, and then we can come back round. So I think my comment is we need to clarify the scope of what adaptation would include or not on the basis of that. And we're really not ready to do that. So given that we had really good advice and feedback from the group, we feel that for now, there's not much we can do with that, but there are other areas to look at. So, there's, I'll use, for example, mitigation. There's also the resilience component, or the area that I think of fondly as recovery kind of work. So there are elements of things that can progress. It would be just saying we might want to set a scope for that. So your comment around council having a view on the scope that the newly formed group might focus on, I think would be important. So that might be, hopefully that answers the question, Janet.
Yeah, work in progress, I guess, but exciting to be entering this new phase. Thank you.
So Janet, thank you very much for your comments, and they're certainly noted. And as Chris has just said, this is very early in this process, and there'll be a lot of water under the bridge before any new group is formed and how that will actually look. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now I'll move on to Mr. Black. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for everyone's information, look, I've been on the inside a lot of these conversations, so some of my comments will be observations and some will be questions about going forward. And these questions actually don't necessarily need an answer today. It's just stuff we'll need to think about going forward. My observations were that the group there didn't understand the way that we run our meetings, and I think there's probably a little bit too much council structure without the context. And I think people were expecting just a more of a free-for-all think tank, and we learned a lot of lessons, especially about which people want to do the strategy, which people do want to do the exec, which people actually want to do the work. And so looking at a structure, KHAG, let's say, has had many years' experience, but also we've got to be cognizant of that organisation runs on people with a lot of spare time. The people we have in our group don't have spare time. We're very time poor, so supporting with administration is going to be very essential going forward. We have a lot of, what we have discovered also is a lot of passionate people, not necessarily to that expert PhD level, but we've got some people who are very well educated and have great ideas. And I agree that this next phase is going to be really crucial for us to actually get the right structure. And, my suggestion was that we look at what we did for the Otaki and Te Oro Business Association, is have one of those working groups first to actually understand the structure, understand the connection of what council want out of this as well, and set up the right kind of support around that structure. But also open it up back to, because we only had a select number of the people who put their CVs in to be part of the board, actually part of this process, and there's probably a good 2/3, 3/4, which haven't been included in this. And my question is, when do we open this back out, and how do we keep that actually inclusive the whole way through, rather than just saying, hey, closed doors, we'll have this group, thanks. Is there sort of like a committee structure, but anyone can attend? And I think that's where we will get a think tank going on. And I do agree that we need to be have more independence, but have that TOR MOU, just to have how we interact together, what the expectations are, but also a bit of education of how we get to that level. And I think we'll be very effective from there on in. Thank you.
If I may, great points, Community Board Member Black. I think I totally agree that I guess what I want to say is there's been some things that have worked really well actually, and the advice and value we've had from that has been great. I think our next step is to, I think the word that the Mayor may have used was to renew the energy, and our next phase will be important. And I think I will say, and feel comfort saying, from an operational perspective, I think we just need to be really clear about the boundaries that we have in terms of how much resource we can put into things. So I've had a conversation with the Chief Executive, even following this week's meeting, just about that balance that needs to occur between that independence and how I think council operations would support that. So that'll be, as the Chair has said, part of the ongoing conversations, and we really strongly stand behind getting a good, at least interim chair in to manage some of this, because council staff being involved makes it really difficult with the line between being independent and we're too involved. And so we're going to stand firmly behind a position that we're recommending an interim chair as part of our way forward, so that we can support that chair without being in the middle of perhaps the work that might be driven through the work streams that are established and they get underway.
Thank you. Just to comment on that, if I could, I think we could probably make a distinction between an interim chair and administrative support, because I think, let's say, establishing the Otaki and Te Oro, business network, we're going to hopefully they're going to use some of that money which is going to be transferred into them as assistance of actually setting that up, of the emails, the communication, getting the channels established. And that's not necessarily the role of the chair. The chair is more of the direction, the structure, as opposed to actually the doing of all the administrative tasks. So I think that's probably the balance we should keep in mind, is that we don't want to overburden the chair so that they actually become an administrator and actually don't do the job they should be doing.
Yeah, so I'm agreeing. We would support the chair to set up things that helps them to be effective in what they do, which would give independence so that the group can, with a link back to us, be doing some awesome stuff, but also feel that they've got the ability to do things. So that's part of, I think, I'm going to use the word inappropriately probably, but that's the rub at the moment, I think, is we don't quite have that in the right place, and we think that's a really critical step into that phase 2.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Now on to Councillor Hanford. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. I have probably a couple of questions, and then if I can make a couple of brief comments as well. Thank you both for all of the sort of extra money that I feel like this has involved as we've tried to figure out what this sort of pivot will look like, and also to process all of the feedback that the think tank members have had. And I'm sure the table will be aware that the 50 or so people that applied to be a part of the think tank, and then the members that were selected, they all, as Simon mentioned too, they all have really amazing expertise and experience, and any way that we can create space for that and allow community leadership in what needs to be a big response to a big crisis is really important, I think, for us to figure out how to enable. So my first question was around, and kind of linking back to what the Mayor was talking about, around the sort of remit, probably less so of the think tank or any sort of advisory group or forum, more so the strategy stuff and what any advisory group would be feeding into the strategy. I'm a little bit concerned, you mentioned, Chris, that the takutai stuff has meant that the work on the broader climate strategy has pretty much been paused, and we've done as much as we can on that. But I feel like, and it's within our priorities and the actions that are linked to those, now having set our district-wide emissions reduction target, we've got the Sustainable September where we're trying to get the community engaged in reducing emissions district-wide. I think for us to kind of pause all of that mitigation stuff, I get there's some concern about how we communicate it, because people are quite, a little bit passionate about the climate stuff based off of what's come forward with adaptation and takutai. But yeah, I'm wondering what our response to that is going to be when it feels like we've got a bit of momentum on the need to reduce emissions, and I don't want us to fully stop that or stop the community conversation around that because we're waiting for takutai. Sorry, very long-winded way of asking the question, but I feel like it needed that context.
No, a really important question to put on the table. Clearly, the organisation, but just more generally, absolutely, the council have set a district-wide emissions reduction target, and that was one of the first things I think we did with some advice from the Climate Change and Resilience think tank to get that out last year. So that stays as it lays. There's a lot of work underway, be it through actions we might be taking that you've mentioned today, but also in our transport space. There's a lot of activity already underway that will continue. I think our reference to takutai capite is council, when they received the report, noted an additional recommendation which said, do not do anything with this information until you come back to us. So with that in mind, we will be coming back to council, we will be having some conversations, and things will progress in that space as we've had that conversation with you. I think we're trying to make sure that we follow the commitment that you've made to parts of the community, so that doesn't prohibit us progressing the things that don't fall within that, but it means that in that zone we will be coming back to you, and we will come back to you this year with our first phase of conversations, and through that we might be able to unpack what we can use and move on with. But we think we've made a serious commitment to people who had other concerns about that work and how we take that forward. So for now, that is the commitment we've made, I'm going to say, at an executive level in our operations team.
Go after you. Oh, what's my mic's come back on? Okay, yep. Keen to discuss that more, I think, but not now. That I can park that. The other thing I just wanted to sort of mention, I guess, for the table, and thanks, Simon, for referencing a lot of sort of the process of how we've got to this point. The think tank members are now going to connect themselves without Jocelyn or myself present, or staff. I think Simon and Christian will be there as community board representatives, but the think tank's really keen to kind of come together independently of us and start to think more about exactly what they envisage their sort of purpose and remit to be, and then maybe put some of that down on paper, work with council staff to find sort of a reasonable compromise as to how they can be effective both in their advocacy and advisory sort of role to council, but then also they're very kind of action oriented as well. There's a lot of people who just want to get on and do stuff in the community and make connections with groups and find out what's already happening and pull that together in some form. And so I'm going to head along to the Low Carbon Kapiti meeting tonight and sort of bring them up to speed with what's going on to connect, because they're a really active group in this space as well and kind of do to some extent some similar things. But yeah, I think the think tank members, to the Mayor's point, there is some energy there. It's not like the whole thing has kind of fallen over and needs to be completely rebuilt. There are some people within the group who are very keen to be involved in this next phase and stage. Just capacity is a real issue in terms of figuring out what that looks like and leading it. But yeah, there's still some energy for sure. We just need to figure out what form it takes.
Just want to say it's very exciting, and also to note the way you've described the think tank coming together for Korero to talk about who they are and what they want to achieve is actually very similar to what the Kapiti Health Advisory Group did. So whilst they've been around for 5 to 7 years, they did have a reset and did the very same thing and developed a bit of a work program. So I think that's an exciting next step for this pivot.
Thank you, Chris and Sophie, for your comments. So now we'll go on to Councillor Coe.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry,
you.
I know I've already spoken, but I just wanted to, I've just been cogitating here, and it sounds to me like you need to let this group have their head, and do their own thing, and perhaps set up an incorporated society that so it can do both support stuff for council, but also community-facing stuff and get some projects done. So I would think enabling them to go down that track of an incorporated society and having an MOU where we provide some level of funding for the admin in exchange for input into our strategies and policies and that kind of thing seems to me like a win-win situation, because it lets them go off and do what they want to do as well as helping us. And I think that will strengthen the group, and we'll get better advice out of it as a result, because they'll be connecting with so many more people.
I'm just going to channel the Chief Executive and say that that's currently not in the long-term plan budget as a funded thing to do, and happy to work alongside the group, as Councillor Henford had noted, to look at pivot 2 and the next and the steps forward. Depending on what that looks like, we would need to come back to you and let you know the impact to effectively our budget, the rates implications, and or what we won't do if we proceed to support that. So happy to do that though.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't have thought that initially they would need a lot of support, and because I mean, volunteer burnout doesn't happen for 5 or 6 years, having been down that track several times myself. So I think you've probably got a bit of, you can capitalise on some of the energy and motivation now, but also if they have their own legal structure, it means they can apply for funding from elsewhere to supplement council funding. So I wouldn't see that we're fully supporting an admin function for them, but just providing a level that is commensurate with their input back into our policy and strategy, not fully funding their total operation, but whether it's a token gesture, whether it's just, it wouldn't be money necessarily, but support in kind by way of someone to help sort out meetings and take minutes and stuff.
So as been mentioned, we're in a pivoting phase, and I think whatever structure or organisation or whatever is set up, it's very early days, and so obviously we will come back to you and discuss how it's potentially going to look. And I think there are lots of options out there, and it's really, really exciting to think that we are moving on to a bigger phase.
But ask them what they'd like, how they see it.
And that's exactly, so the ball is now in their park.
Yeah, but I think we should look at all options.
Oh, of course, yes. So, we have no more questions, no more comments. So thank you very much again for Chris, Gina, Simon, Rob, Monique and Doug for the involvement, hard work and time you've put into this, and as I said, to fellow councillors or elected members and the members of our think tank. So now, and I suppose this is now looking at the recommendations, and so we have a number here which is acknowledging the work, you know, the genuine work, and genuinely thanking them for their valuable input, endorsing the need for ongoing independent advice, and noting that this work will progress in September, and advising that you know, that there's more work to be done in this space. So can I have a mover for those recommendations, please? Thank you, Christian. Seconder?
I just have one more question, sorry. In relation to the recommendation B, through establishment of a new advisory group, that doesn't preclude the approach that Liz was referring to. That's not saying we're locked into establishing a new advisory group and that being phase 2.
I think I'm going to respond and say we've already set out on a course to ask the group a question about how they see themselves. We would come back to you with advice and say, I guess effectively, these are the options that are put on the table. We would acknowledge what an advisory group was, and if it's different to that, what it looks like, and then you could have your kōrero around that. So it won't stop the investigation happening, is maybe the way I'll put it.
Yes, so I think what this is saying here is endorsing a particular way forward, but that doesn't mean to say that at a later point in time, when another option comes forward, if another option came forward, that we can't endorse that as well.
I agree, and I guess from an operational perspective, yes, my understanding at this stage is that we were looking to establish an advisory group. If through the work that's undertaken through investigation, there's other options that are tabled here, and you agree that you want to try something else, then that would be on the basis of that advice that came through. But it doesn't say limited to. Yeah, because it could be a bunch of stuff. And to be fair, I don't think the Chief Executive would be happy for us to go off and start undertaking work to look at establishing incorporated societies or other things across the district. So I think it's probably better framed as an advisory group. Yeah, but that's why we've framed it that way.
Yeah, so I know that we're part way through moving and seconding, but I see that Mr. Judge has, and I will allow, do you have a question or a comment?
A comment.
Okay, briefly, that'd be good.
Okay, thank you. I think having listened to what Chris has so eloquently put multiple times about the resourcing behind it, I feel that once that the group has reconvened for phase 2 and come up with what it thinks its capabilities are, and then it comes back to this committee to decide what we want of that group with knowledge of those capabilities. And then if we vote on that as a committee, then it's up to this committee to work with staff to help fulfill that brief. And that might result in a different outcome from the current restrictions we face on resourcing if this committee and then perhaps full council decides that we want to resource things differently. I would hope there would be scope for that.
Can I just say, yes, the way the committees work, absolutely. But a decision would need to be made.
So thank you again. So we'll, so as I said, we were partway through these recommendations. So I can't remember. Was it Christian? Yeah, you moved it. Seconder? I don't know if we got a seconder. No, seconder. Thank you, Councillor Coe. I won't ask for any discussion because we've already had plenty. So all those in favour? Those against? The motion is passed. Thank you. Thank you very much for this report, Chris and Gina, and as I said, the team and behind doing all this work. So now we move on to item 10, which is confirmation of minutes, which is on page 52. I'll take the minutes as being read. Do I have a mover that these are accepted as a true and correct record? Councillor Coe, thank you. A seconder? Thank you, Mr Black. All those in favour say aye. Against? Passed. Thank you. So now we'll move on to our closing karakia. Would anyone like to read that, or I'm more than happy to do it? Okay. May blessings be upon us all, and our business be successful, so that our words endure, our language endures, and may the spirit be good. May Maui be settled and in balance among the activities we all do today. Join, gather and unite, forward together. So thank you everyone for your participation today, and to the staff for supporting our meeting. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.